I mean, look, I was playing in the NFL. I think I would have made like 500 grand, maybe just shy of that. I can't remember what the year 2 minimum was at the time, whatever. But I gave that up to start over with NXT, and I was making 39,000. And
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you champions out there, welcome to the Podcast of Champions. Thank you so much for joining us today. As you can see, we have a very special guest. He has a laundry list of accomplishments, so I'm going to have to read them off of a paper. Former NFL player, former WWE superstar, 7-time 24/7 champion, co-host of TMZ Sports, founder of Paragon Talent Group, and overall great human and friend to the Hawk, Mr. Mojo.
booyah!
Ooh,
What's
welcome.
up? Thanks for having me on, my friends. This is cool.
Absolutely. Is Mojo, is that what we're going by?
That's what we're going by these days.
Okay.
I'm never dropping it. We had to drop that R word at the end, but the mojo stays.
Dude, you can't kill the Mojo.
No, never. Can't
That's
do it.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much, man. Mojo's a guy that kind of wandered into the Hawk, man, about 2 months ago. Signed up for a training with one of his buddies, and he came in here, and he was kind of blown away by the facility and by the cleanliness and the state-of-the-art facility that we had, and the excellence and the greatness.
Oh my goodness, we're putting him over, not us.
Well, I'm putting myself over a little bit.
Well, I'm going to put you over plenty, so don't worry about
There
that.
we go. I got to do it a little bit. So you've been here for a little bit, man. What do you think?
This place is nuts. First of all, I didn't know that this was your school when I first came in. My buddy Fidel was coming in for a training session and told me about this place, and I walked in and I was blown away. First of all, the 20x20 ring, I'm not sure there's anywhere else in Orlando besides the WWE Performance Center that has a 20x20, and that, I mean, if you're talking about training like you're there and all of these things, I mean, that is what you're looking for, because it really does make a huge difference in your training. But then the turf field, just put it over the top, the full gym, the cold plunge, which is a legit one. It's not just like a bucket.
No,
Oh, yeah.
That's
sir.
what most people have, a
No,
bucket.
this is the cold
We don't
plunge.
need the ice.
The sauna, the whole thing, the rehab tools. I mean, the entrance, you guys are doing it all here. I mean, this is just a really cool place. It's an hour from my house, which my new house is kind of out in the middle of nowhere, which sucks, but it's worth the drive for sure.
Awesome.
You
Well,
would never think you lived that far because you're here a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, every week.
No, we love Mojo being here. He's been nothing but a help, and just a guy that our students can pick his brain, and he comes in and helps the students, and he's here probably a couple times a week. So we love to have Mojo, and this is just a start of a great partnership and a great friendship as well. But yeah, let's get to it. Might as well, right?
All right.
So Mr. Mojo, obviously you've
Sir.
been on a lot of interviews before. You've been on a lot of podcasts, and your background has been pretty well covered. But just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background coming up, and what got you to this point right now.
Yeah, man. Born and raised in the D.C. area in Alexandria, Virginia, which all my Virginia buddies have been furious with me over the past couple decades because I've been repping Maryland a lot harder than VA, because that's where I played my college ball. Before then, I actually played football at the high school from the movie Remember the Titans.
Really?
T.C. Williams in Alexandria. I was a freshman there when the movie came out, but walked on at a Division III school for 2 years, wanted to challenge myself, transferred up to Maryland, spent a couple years pro bouncing around, and had this injury, blew out my calf really bad, and had an opportunity to kind of reevaluate my life. I was out for 18 months, figure out what I was going to do next, and I assumed that was going to be going back to football. I was talking to the Jets and the Raiders at the time, actually, and then this opportunity to go to NXT kind of came out of left field. Some of my best friends, the Gronkowski brothers, their dad was college roommates with Mike Rotunda. Small world there, and we made a phone call, and that was that. Left football, started over with wrestling, and the rest is history.
That is so cool. So I mean, man, from starting, from football, making the leap of faith to wrestling, it sounds like you had to have a lot of leaps of faith to start over in an entire brand new industry.
A few times.
A few times, yeah. What gave you the courage to kind of start over from square one to try something completely different over and over?
Well, to set the scene a little bit, it made no sense on paper because I mean, look, I was playing in the NFL. There's no guarantees if I would have signed with one of those teams that, one, I would have made the roster, and two, I would have been there long enough to make that a worthwhile decision as well. But had I gone back, I think I would have made like 500 grand, maybe just shy of that. I can't remember what the year 2 minimum was at the time, whatever. But I gave that up to start over with NXT, and I was making 39,000, and I had 150 grand in student debt I still had to pay off, so I was losing $1,000 a month. So like I knew what the situation was going to be financially, and that it was like probably the dumbest move ever in the short term. But when you evaluate kind of the long-term prospects there, to me, it was a worthwhile decision because I was a nose guard in football. Like I was 330 pounds at the time. The second I dropped down to 300, I was like getting cut from teams for being too light. So I had to be that big. I knew that wasn't going to be sustainable with my frame and how I changed or how I trained for too long. So I knew that was a bad move. But, you know, you look at wrestling, that was the first thing I ever wanted to do. It was something I was extremely passionate about, even though I was completely untrained in it. But, you know, I saw that being something I could do for 5, 10, 20 years that, you know, could be something that could really be awesome to develop my brand. And when I evaluated all these things, it just was a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you like the typical kid that grew up watching it?
Oh,
Is
yeah,
that where
for
the
sure.
passion came from?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Every week, I didn't even realize, I say this all the time, but it's so true. As a kid, I had no idea WWF and WCW were 2 different companies. I couldn't process that. I just figured it was like the NFL. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, and we got the Miami Dolphins right there, but it's all within the league of wrestling. I didn't realize it was 2 separate things. But yeah, watching every week with my dad and my brother, and, you know, trying to do moves in the living room and getting yelled at for it. My mom would be screaming at us to stop, and my dad would be egging us on to keep going. It was awesome, man. And then, you know, football ended up really taking off for me, and, you know, I'm kind of all in on whatever I'm doing. So stopped watching wrestling then. Just like when I started wrestling, I stopped watching football then. And that was it.
Yeah, that's a lot like my story. I actually grew up a wrestling fan. That was like my first dream, but then I found football, and wrestling was not as cool. I went 100% into football, and when I was done playing college football, then I went back into wrestling. So same type of deal. And obviously I have my answers for this, but what do you think the biggest difference between wrestling and football is?
For me, it was just that mental component. Physically, if you play, you know, college ball or definitely pro ball, you can absolutely handle wrestling physically, at least enough to be able to carve out your own gimmick. You know, you don't have to be the most technical wrestler to make it. I certainly wasn't. But yeah, I mean, just that mental component of having to game plan an entirely different way, learning how to slow down, to work fast but slow down kind of at the same time was something that was challenging for me in the beginning, especially with the whole stay hype thing, because I was supposed to be turned up all the time. So how am I supposed to be turned up all the time, look turned up all the time, but not be turned up all the time? It didn't make any sense. So it took me a long time to understand how to figure that out. But yeah, just that mental component, the memorization of spots and promos, of, you know, not being able to go out there and just freestyle it and prepare beforehand, but on game day, you just figure it out. Like, that wasn't really how we did things. I know, you know, some of the old timers, they worked a different way, but that's not how things are done now. So yeah, that was tough, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I will say that this is way tougher than anything I ever did, you know, football, basketball, whatever, just because of the mental component. So no, that's 100% true. But speaking of the mental component, some of you guys might not know how mentally gifted this guy is, because as we were researching Mr. Mojo, we found out that he used to work for Morgan Stanley.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
I had an aunt that was working for Morgan Stanley at the time, and she was always kind of my professional mentor. But I started interning for her when I was 11, and I'd go in after school in the summers, and I wasn't really doing anything more than filing and photocopying, but I was able to kind of sit in on business meetings and client meetings if they approved and just be exposed to that lifestyle. And really gave me a leg up because when I was sitting through my business classes, I knew exactly what they were talking about, kind of like, these wrestlers who had parents or grandparents in the business. They were just exposed to it as a young age, and just having that visibility just goes such a long way later in life, even if you don't even realize it. But yeah, it was a really cool spot. I stayed with Morgan Stanley through college, interning whenever I could. It was good money. When I was 11, I was making $10 an hour, which was big money.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, that $10 an hour stayed my rate through college. I never got a pay increase, but it balanced out in the end, right? I'll take it. But yeah, it was really awesome experience and really helped me out in my life. So I was grateful to have it.
So real talk though, how many Morgan Stanley employees have their 11-year-olds come intern? Like, were you the first and the only, or is this a common occurrence?
The Doogie Howser of Morgan Stanley.
Well, my aunt was the branch manager, so I don't think anyone was gonna say anything. I got a little boost there. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, I didn't see any other 11-year-olds on the job. No.
What do you think was one of the biggest things that you learned from doing a job like that, and especially like so young?
Probably how to handle meetings, how to speak with people, how to deliver your message to them. With the stock market, I mean, let's be real. At the end of the day, no one knows entirely what they're talking about. It's all purely speculation with as much research as you can possibly add to it. But, figuring out the right way to bundle that information, to assure people that you've done your homework while simultaneously making them understand that this is a risk and this is a gamble and no one has a crystal ball. Like, just be able to do that kind of full 360 presentation from all angles. I mean, honestly, with what I'm doing now with my company, that's been a very valuable asset. Some of these companies that we work with that are startups, these things might not last the year. That's just how it goes with new companies. Some deals are more of a sure thing than others. There's always going to be some degree of risk, especially if you want to go the equity route. But just handling yourself as a business professional, whether that was when I would sit down with Triple H or Vince and do contract negotiations or submit pitches for characters. All of that I learned from Morgan Stanley at a very young age aided me in the future and was something that people really appreciated later on.
Heck yeah.
When you were 11, did you want to be there? Like, did you always have this interest in business, or was it your aunt was like, just come with me, and then you developed a love for it?
No, I think I probably saw that, she was a very successful, powerful, respected woman. And I was like, I want to live that lifestyle. I want to have money and respect and travel and do all of these things, but also making money out of money and, improving your circumstances. That was all something that was, as interesting as it could have been for a kid that didn't know anything. And it just kind of gave me a path. Like, everyone needs a path. I think that's one thing now, that when people leave WWE or AEW, it's a sink or swim because there's no clear-cut path. You don't show up to practice at this time and weight training at this time and promo class and then shows at this time, and you know what you have to do at those events, and if you do it, you make it, and if you don't, you don't. When you're out in the open, you don't know how to allocate your time as far as weightlifting versus practice versus character versus all of these elements that can monopolize all of your time for a day. And that's a very valuable resource to have.
Just the self-discipline to know what to prioritize.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, no one never fully knows the answer there either.
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of shift to what you're doing now. So Renee has some questions. She's the brand aficionado. So
yes.
She was very geeking out talking about brands with you.
Well, when Mojo walked in the doors, right? Well, first of all, and I didn't want to interrupt in the beginning, but I'm a huge Green Bay Packers fan.
Go Pack, go!
Go Pack, go! I had to call that out. We were texting a lot this playoff season.
How'd that go for you guys, by the way?
Well, he's a Lions fan.
I'm gonna
so
be
let's
honest.
just call it out.
It
This
went
was
better
my
than
1
I
year.
thought it was
Amen.
gonna go.
Me too.
And I was rooting for the Lions. How do you
Same.
not root for the Lions? At least this year.
Same.
Yeah,
Next year, though, the minute preseason starts, I'm back to not rooting for the Lions until I have to.
they'll probably not win a game next year. No,
They
the Lions.
freaking better.
They better.
They should have
It's
been
been
in the Super
35
Bowl.
years of heartbreak, though. But that's besides the point. We'll get to the.
Look what I did. I'm sorry.
what you've
Anyway,
opened
so
up.
Mojo walked in the doors, and obviously I knew who you were from the WWE, but also because you had played on the Packers, but also he owns his own talent agency, Paragon Talent Group. So the one that runs this business and the marketer here, I saw you and I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to pick his brain and talk to him about marketing because I just think that's so cool. I think you're amazing, just such a kind and genuine human, but then to know this talented athlete has this business mental mindset that
Nobody
you come
thought.
in with.
Nobody thought the hype man
Yeah.
had his own business and was
Wearing the
actually,
Zubas and
Yeah,
partying,
I
just
mean-
a mindless idiot just bouncing around.
It's a different side that a lot of people haven't seen.
And I love it. I think it's incredible, and I'm like, I just couldn't wait to get to know you. And you've absolutely delivered. We just love having you here, and we love you as a person. But talk to us about Paragon, right? Like,
Yeah.
why, how? Because you transitioned from WWE into Paragon. So tell us the origin story of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it would probably start from, when I was playing in the NFL, like everyone had an agent, some guys had managers, but everyone had representation. It was part of the game. So when I came over to WWE, I was stunned by the fact that almost nobody had reps other than the guys at the tippy top of the card. And, after I was there, didn't take long for me to figure out why. I mean, of course, with no union, which always is a problem for any sports league if there's no union to protect the players, especially when you're talking about a business that essentially was a monopoly before AEW came around, which was just, oh my gosh, that was such a game changer for everybody on the talent side, at least. But nobody could fight for themselves. No one could vouch for themselves. You were in a position where you essentially had a take it or leave it contract, and it got kind of nasty for a lot of people. And I always knew that there should be an infrastructure in place. If it's not going to be a union, there needs to be more management. But being around the business, I knew that anyone that I had worked with in football would not be a suitable person to be a manager within wrestling because it's just such a different business and the job demands so much more, so many different things. And you could know everything there is to know about sports and know nothing about wrestling. So there was a need for sure. So I always knew that someone should do this. Fast forward towards the end of my career, I ended up getting COVID really bad. I knew I was going to have to hang up my boots. I thought it was going to be a career ender, couldn't breathe, had to figure out something else to do. It just happened that fast out of the blue. So I figured I was going to be the guy to start this company. And I had this idea. I called one of my best friends, Steve K, and I pitched him this idea, and I thought Steve would be a perfect business partner for this thing, just knowing his background in music and entertainment and on the business side. And we started Paragon together, and it's been awesome. I mean, we meant to start with 10 talent that we could really focus in on and, maybe do brand deals, maybe grow to do their long-term contracts, maybe indie bookings, which was something I didn't know about at the time because I had never wrestled on the indies. But, fast forward, I think in April, we'll hit 3 years as a company. We've done paid deals for, I think we're just about to hit 300 talent. So we've worked, and almost all of those are pro wrestlers, by the way. And we're doing long-term contract negotiations with WWE, AEW, Impact, New Japan, like all of them. We're doing independent signings, autograph signings, third-party brand deals, endorsements, which includes equity arrangements. We're sponsoring visas for some of the international talent so that when they get fired from the bigs, they don't have to get deported. Because I always thought that was pretty nasty. That was something we had to teach ourselves because we obviously knew nothing about it. But it's been really cool. We've been able to have a 360 approach to our people and help them out in any ways we've been able to and anything that they need.
And it's still just you and Steven, right? Is that it, Steve?
Steve and I are, 50-50 partners in the business. We have some other people that we work with, of course. I mean, we have an assistant and whatnot, but we have some people that were actually former bosses of mine in WWE that are working with us now. That has been really cool. Everyone's kind of on their own unique contract based off of what they're looking for. But yeah, it's been pretty cool to work with people I worked with before, under our own roof now, doing our own thing on our own schedule.
Yeah.
Oh, how the tables have turned.
Go give me some coffee.
No, never like that. A couple I wanted to, but no, not like that. Hey, I remember when you denied my raise.
Right.
Go get the damn coffee.
Yeah.
I don't drink coffee though, so get it
You
for
drink
Steve.
Celsius.
Yeah,
You
drink
go get some
Celsius.
energy
Live
drinks.
fit.
How many did you start with? So 3 years ago. Who were the OGs?
I think a couple of our earliest signings were the Iconics.
Okay.
Cass and Jess were just awesome. I mean, honestly, everyone just kind of phased in right from the start. Word got out extremely quickly, which is why I knew we were doing the right thing. We didn't even have to promote this thing at all. Like, everyone came calling, and you know how it is in a wrestling locker room, bro.
Oh, yeah.
One person gets one thing, everybody else has to have it immediately, which honestly has helped us for brands, because the second we introduce one category to the mix, everybody gets with it, and now they got a way more scope and reach than they originally had thought. So
Yep.
it's
Right.
pretty cool.
That's great. And yeah, so I guess what does there? So you have 300 people now. Does anybody like come to mind as like standing out, being like the gold star, like somebody who's just really killing it that's on your roster right now?
When it comes to like understanding business and like the branding side of it, and marketing themselves appropriately.
Sure. Well, the probably the worst answer or the most boring answer I could give you is literally everybody, because that's actually been one of our pitches when we're sitting down with these brands. Is just explaining to them that every single talent on our roster is an immediately identifiable international persona. They know how to create a brand. They know how to market a brand. I mean, that's the job of a pro wrestler, right? You create your gimmick. You get this one little shot on TV that you don't get until you convince the coaches that you have something marketable. And then you have to go out there and win the crowd. And if you don't, you're fired, you hit the bench, you just don't get an opportunity. So anyone that you see on any television show, they have something that is one of one that they can do that no one else can do. And that's very appealing to a brand. And every brand has very unique needs. So doesn't matter if you're a Roman Reigns or a Seth Rollins. To some brands, they're not the guy that they want. They might want somebody that, for all intents and purposes, is a job guy, but they appeal more to their demo, So something like that, it just, everyone's kind of a good fit. But, within our company, some people are better at certain things. Like if we need someone that's going to generate views, that understands the algorithm, we have people for that. CJ Perry's an unbelievable example of that. When we do brand deals for her, I try to tell the brands, like, get the talking points that you need, but do not deliver her any creative vision. Like, you can if you have to, but she's really good at this stuff. Let her figure that out, because she knows what's trending, and she knows, I don't even really know how to do it, but what music to put on and how many seconds exactly it has to be, and how to edit it within the app so that Instagram pushes it and all of these things. So, it all just depends on what you're looking for. People that are better for signings, whose value just crushes it. We started working with Samoa Joe, and he's just, my goodness, he's a rock star, because he's one of those people, and it's become harder every year, that can penetrate outside of the wrestling bubble. I mean, Twisted Metal and DC
Netflix.
Comics and all of these other things that he's doing. It's like the properties that he's associated with are just unbelievable. So if you're talking about anything in or out of wrestling, his reach is undeniable. So he's been great to work with. Plus, I like hanging out with him because he's hilarious and he's a good friend.
Funny guy.
I don't get to see him much anymore, so
Aw.
that's been cool.
Well, we've talked about this, you and I, but do you feel like what kind of leg up do you feel like pro wrestlers have on other influencers when it comes to brand deals?
Yeah, I mean, content creation. So, I mean, we talked a little bit about what the wrestlers bring to the table, but if you want to compare it to what other athletes bring to the table, and I mean, Packers fans, Lions fans, even taking it outside of football. I usually compare to football because that's my background, but how many household names are there really in sports? Then you take it a step further. How many of those household names, have personas and gimmicks, something that someone could market that makes them actually special, that, their hobbies don't include fitness, like,
Period.
yeah.
Working out.
So for all like the, I always used to say Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady's of the world, even though both of them are retired now, those guys make a lot of money. Like they were making, 10 million a year. Brady was whatever he was on, 30 to 50 million or whatever. Those guys, to do a deal with them, it's going to be expensive, and it should be for those guys. They've earned that. But for some of our wrestlers, they might have that same kind of recognition globally, not just domestically, because football is only an American thing.
Right.
They might have the same follower counts or greater, and they have that ability to cut a promo for a fraction of the price.
I'm sold.
Yeah. So
Sign her up.
It makes a lot of sense when you're talking to
Yeah.
a brand, especially when they can hear, guys, my people will have this turned over in 30 minutes or an hour. We don't need 2 weeks of lead time to get a script and then 3 more weeks of production. It's like, our people know how to film their own stuff. They can edit their own. Give me an hour, I'll have it back. We're good to go. And we've done that. We've signed deals in the morning for people in Orlando to do a brand activation in LA the same day, just a handful of hours later. That's what we're used to as wrestlers. Hey, your book, go to the airport.
Yeah.
Nothing out of the ordinary for us.
Yeah.
Well, we're taught to be resourceful on a limited amount of time. The common phrase is making chicken salad out of, and I won't end that, but you have to be able to think on your feet very quickly, and do it in a way that gets you over and gets the product over. So having said, talking about pro wrestlers, what do you think like the biggest mistake pro wrestlers make in like marketing or branding or just in business in general? Or, somebody starting off, what would be a big piece of advice for you for wrestlers trying to grow their brand?
Yeah, so I'd say for anyone that's probably on the, a main roster or on a televised spot, it absolutely gets harder because it's not your call anymore. I mean, you can try and push your gimmick in the direction you want it to, but ultimately you're handcuffed and you're severely constrained by what's in the script, where they want your character to go. And if you deviate from that too much, you're just going to be pulled off, and that's that. So for those people, I would say you really need to sit down with your higher ups and have that conversation and voice your ideas and come correct and come prepared, and don't just walk in there and be like, I want to do something different. Great. What do you want to do? I'm not sure what you got for me. Nobody wants to hear that. You will be thrown out of that office, and I've seen that happen for guys that didn't come prepared. But you got to take it a step further too. How can the company monetize this change? What will this appeal to? And for me, that was something I struggled with, because the whole stay hype thing I was doing as a babyface, that was what the company liked from a business standpoint. So even when I turned heel and I started being serious, and even when I was doing that weird, stupid mirror thing, they always wanted me to be babyface, stay hyped Mojo on the outside, and go to the Nestle headquarters and do this, and go to the Boys and Girls Club or Susan G. Komen and be the stay hype Mojo. And I'm like, why are we not seeing that? If that is what you think we're why am I not doing that on TV if that's what's working so well out of the ring? That's on me to do a better job of explaining why we need to do that, and pulling statistics and numbers and data and presenting whatever I need to maybe find some way to marry this thing together and meet in the middle. Like, wrestlers can't just accept things. You got to be a little bit more proactive about it, no matter how scary it might be to walk in the office. Otherwise, you're just going to go with the status quo. For anyone starting out, you need to factor that in. Yes, maybe this will pop the internet crowd, but how can a billion-dollar global entity place this on a show? Maybe if you're an international student or talent, maybe you play that up a little bit. You got to have shades of your culture, and you should, because that's who you are. It's a piece of who you are. But that also gives the company a way to monetize that. Maybe you're just the guy that wrestles once a year when they go to your country. Whatever. That keeps you on the roster. That gives you a job and gives you an opportunity to earn more than that. But for the new guys, you got to find something that you can monetize. What are companies that maybe I want to work with down the line that could maybe be sponsors of the show? What is a charity that maybe I can be the conduit for? There's places for everybody when you're talking about one of these major promotions. They need somebody on the roster for every job. So you got to think of a way to check a box that no one else can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've shared this before on the podcast, but you're the talent agency talking about pitching to brands. I'm the brand. Like that's my shoot job is being the brand. And here at the Hawk, marketing is such a big part of what we teach the students, to which I think the ones that are here now understand it because we harp on them and I teach them constantly. But the ones that come in, I think it's almost kind of a shock to them, like how much time we spend on the personal brand side of things and why it's so important. And to be honest, I think the one presentation I gave where a lot of it clicked was last month, where I used the examples of like how to monetize social media, but it all started with having a brand and knowing who you are and your personal brand. So, but it sounds like the majority of your roster people, they come in with a personal brand.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're the ones that maybe just recently got released. Do you ever have a plan in the future for Paragon to bring on like a development side of things?
We would love to expand to that. I mean, eventually the end goal is to become the end all for the world of pro wrestling, no matter who you're trying to get to and what promotion and whatever you're trying to do for them. We can do it all. And I think building the future is absolutely important, and working with people as they're coming up, because, very much like being exposed to a business when you're a kid, when you're 11 working at Morgan Stanley, or when you're going to watch your mom or your dad or your grandpa or grandma wrestle, for one of the bigs, it's the same kind of mental enrichment, ingraining that into your mind from the beginning so that you can carry that through the rest of your career. So I think that's absolutely important. I mean, right now we're really, really trying to expand. I mean, demand far outstretches the supply, at least from a talent side for our company. So we're constantly, looking for more help, for that, because, 300 talent that we've worked with to be able to find brand deals for everyone in a regular flow, and do their autograph signings and do their contracts and get their visas and do everything else that we do. It's that's an army we're talking about here right now. So it's a lot. And, luckily it's not as hard as maybe working with other athletes, because our people are brands and they know what they're doing. I mean, it's very easy to get them a deal and turn them loose. There's very little hand holding afterwards, which is just, my goodness, what a blessing. We've done deals with talent in other sports. It's not always as easy. So that part gets tough. But yeah, that would be the end goal for sure.
That's awesome.
Awesome. So just in regards to Paragon, say hypothetically, a young, handsome, talented, charismatic, and humble
right there
wrestler with a chiseled jawline wanted to become a member of the Paragon roster, where would they start out? How would they go about that?
And we're good. It's official.
It's on camera now,
It's
baby.
official.
That's how it happens.
Oh my goodness.
Well, dude, no, because I mean, if you think about it, it's not just you, right? It's your school and it's your team and it's the whole squad, right? Like this is an extension of your brand, because one thing, it's you can market who you are in the ring.
Yes.
But this is kind of cool because now we have two people we can market for every human being. You got the guy you are in the ring, and you got the guy you are out of the ring, and that's not always the same person, because you can market your gimmick if you're a heel in the ring, but also it's like, oh, well, here's here's this businessman, here's this entrepreneur, here's a teacher, here's a coach, here's somebody that's been able to create a school that is unlike any other school on the planet. I mean, essentially what you have here is a mini WWE performance center, right? I mean, the equipment is state of the art. It's very similar equipment to what they have there. It's just not as big. You know, that's pretty much the only difference.
Yet.
Actually, you know what? Your turf field's probably about the same size, if I'm being real. I haven't been there in a bit. Maybe they've expanded. I don't know. But
We'll get more machines someday.
you got the same amount of cold plunges. You have more saunas than they do.
There we go. Boom, take that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. No,
I think your TV might be bigger than your weight room than theirs is too.
There we go. There we go. No, it's just, I mean, it's seriously been just a match made in heaven, because we harp on branding and business and marketing so much, and then Mojo walks in and he's the poster boy for all of that. So I know Renee has loved it every single time. I've loved it, you know, your in-ring and psychology and all the stuff that you've helped the students out with, but also, even more importantly, in our opinion, is the outside of the ring stuff. So it's just been invaluable.
We tell the students all the time, so many people are good examples of it. You being one of them, pro wrestling will end for you one day.
Yeah.
Like it will.
Before you're ready for it.
Like your bump card is real, and it might not even be the bump card that takes you out, you know?
Yeah.
So then what? Do you have the foundation? Do you have the brand to go out and get the deals after? Did you create and lay what needed to be laid while you were there? Because if not, you're going to start at ground zero. So like these kids that we have that we're teaching now, like 90% of them haven't had their first match, but I'm harping on them. Content, strategy, who are you? Let's figure that out. Let's grow that.
Yeah.
I don't care you haven't had your first match. I can start growing your personal brand right now. And we should be doing that. And we have a few that have a few 50,000 followers that are just, they're doing what they should be doing. So
we always had that job in college and pro football. There was somebody whose job was going to be essentially the afterlife, you know, trying to coach you up and prepare you. No one ever wants to think about it, maybe because they don't want to, but mostly because everyone's too busy and focused on trying to make it now. But you really do have to carve some of that out. And I think people are starting to see that a little more. And I think that's been a really cool thing for us, for Paragon, is people are starting to see what's available to them and what they qualify for, whereas maybe they previously didn't think that. And I have conversations probably every week with, you know, some of the biggest names in wrestling that are currently, you know, in WWE or AEW, and they just call and they just want to chat like, hey, you know, maybe my contract's coming up. You know, even outside of maybe negotiating it for them, it might just be like, hey, what would the outside look for me? How much would I stand to make doing this? What would be my rate for X or Y? You know, fill me in. What do you think I would be good at? And we have these conversations just to prepare them. But it's really mandatory, and everyone should be doing that stuff, because especially now with a change of ownership in WWE, the same people that were pulling for you before, they're not even there anymore, most of them. So you got to be prepared to not be one of the new guard and this might end, or whether it's a career-ending injury, you got to be ready for what's next. And I feel like this job prepares you for what's next better than any other sport, but you still got to walk down that road and line it up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I wonder, too, if you find this, maybe not, but our students, of course, do, how shocked they are, how much can be made outside of wrestling. If
yeah.
do you find them being like, what? I can make that much doing one post?
I mean, I won't talk about anybody's numbers, but I can tell you that I make more now for an Instagram post than I made in any pay-per-view match that I wrestled in for WWE outside of like WrestleMania.
Sure.
Maybe one, maybe two others. But like, that's crazy to me. Posting a picture on a website pays me more than a pay-per-view, if I could even get on it in the first place, to go out there and just beat the hell out of each other and then, like, you know, count my chip teeth later on and, you know, go throw myself in the ice tub kind of thing.
Yeah, with no bumps.
Well, yeah. It's nuts to me, but that's how it goes. I mean, there's tremendous value on the outside, and it's just a matter of figuring it out, lining it up. And
I know how much we pay our influencers. This is why
Yeah,
I
you
tell
get it.
I get it. This is why I tell the students, like, don't come to me and say, I don't like social media. I don't care if you don't like it.
Yeah.
You're going to do it, and you're going to learn how to do it.
I mean, and I'll caveat that with sometimes it does take a little bit to get to that point. I mean, a lot of brands, they want that proof of concept first. You know,
100%.
they want to make sure before they pay you that it's the right demo, that it's going to make sense, that your engagement is good. If your engagement isn't good, whoever actually does see your post, it's actually going to convert for you, or for them, I should say, because
How are you going to make me some money?
Exactly.
Yep.
There's a lot of different ways to calculate success, and it's just a matter of understanding what is important to a brand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
If you don't have any others, do you have?
Well, I have one more, and it's about Paragon.
It's all you, baby.
Okay. So what does the next 5 years look like for Paragon? Like, what are your goals? Okay, well, I'm gonna split it into two. I'm changing my question. What does it look like for Paragon, and what does it look like for Mojo? What's next?
I think those two things are absolutely intertwined,
I'm
but
sure.
from a professional business standpoint, yeah, definitely want Paragon to be a one-stop shop, end all in pro wrestling. And when I say that, it's not to eliminate the small handful of others that do what we do. It would be to factor in a more strategic partnership with those entities so that we have a better working relationship. So at the end of the day, everybody wins, and we're all doing it together for the brand to boost everybody up, as opposed to just mindlessly competing. But yeah, I want to increase the reach and the visibility. I mean, the initial mission was to reintroduce the outside world to pro wrestling for all those people that say, oh, I used to watch in the Attitude Era and I haven't watched since. I mean, that is the most common / obnoxious answer that you're going to get when you talk to people in business. They all watched at some point, which is a huge asset.
Yes.
But they stopped watching, and there's a reason for that. And I think the product now is probably better than it's been in a long time, so that it's helpful. But again, they want to do something that's going to hit their pockets. And I personally believe that working with our talent and working with pro wrestlers is going to have a greater ROI for them than other talent. As far as Mojo personally, I tell you, man, I really do want to get back into a ring at some point. I've been teasing this forever.
Yeah.
It's almost become kind of a joke, to myself at least, multiple times. I have come this close to signing certain contracts with the bigs, or even like one-offs with some indies for, spots that I really wanted to do. The timing just, ended up not being right, too much on the plate. I have to be very careful with anything that I do for myself personally, just because it's time away from our company and our talent, and I'm all in, and any time away, it would have to be something that convinced me that it would boost our brand and our company as a whole and open up more opportunities for who we're representing. Otherwise, it just, I personally want to do it, but I feel like it would almost be kind of a selfish endeavor. And it becomes a struggle because there is that trade-off of, doing it for yourself versus doing it for your team. And, you got to have somewhat of both, otherwise this is a hard job to do with no kind of release or fun on the outside. That's another thing I tell all talent. I said this when I was wrestling too. You got to have a personal life. Your personal life is what's going to keep you fresh and innovative in the ring anyways. Any creative element I ever came up with that worked for me in wrestling, I got from partying and having fun and having a life on the outside. And I do mean every single one. And I know there's a lot of talent that were there for some of this stuff that could co-sign that statement. That's very important for some. You gotta have a personal life. And I think that's another reason why some people as free agents have been happy, is they have that time and they can control their schedule.
Yeah. So that's actually a perfect segue to my next question, because Renee and I talk about it all the time, how you just seem like somebody who is always having fun. You're always positive. You're always, bubbly. You're always
come in with a smile.
high on life is the way that we would describe you. So where does all this positivity come from?
That was probably how Stay Hyped was legitimately created in the start, even before I had a moniker for it. It was just always being that last recruited walk-on guy that nobody wanted, coming in as an underdog and figuring out the perfect recipe for how am I going to get this job. And that loosely ties into that exposure at Morgan Stanley when I was 11. But I can't just be good at one thing. I have to be good at everything, and I got to have the best attitude, and I got to be the hardest working, and I have to have all of these things to beat out the guy that they want to succeed.
Sure.
I can't just be kind of better than him or mostly better than him. I have to be better than him at everything to get this job if you are going to be in that position. I mean, for indie guys coming and starting out, you know, how are you going to beat that 5-star recruit that's already cut his teeth in Japan? Like, what's going to make you different? Attitude is a lot of that. And, you know, especially when I first started, I didn't legitimately feel that way. If anything, maybe it was even a nervous tick walking in, smiling all the time and, you know, being nice and, you know, eating a lot of crap, like putting up with people's stuff. It's just something you got to do, and it just becomes part of you after a while. You almost fake it until you make it, and, you know, prioritizing what really matters in your head. And, you know, this is a job and a business, and how would I want people to act if I was running the show? And that's where I'm at, man. Just, hey, come in, have fun, do the right thing, treat people right, act right, and, you know, be the hardest working guy in the room kind of thing. I know a lot of people say that, but you actually have to be it when the lights are off too and no one's watching. And that's how you get what you want.
Yeah, no, that's great. I've got some quick hitters if you don't have anything else.
Yeah.
Quick
I feel like we
hitters.
could talk for hours. So
Yeah,
we can
no,
go
this
in
is-
there.
I'll
flown
definitely
by.
talk for hours. You're going to have to cut me off.
No, this has been awesome and it's flown by. But yeah, just some quick hitters.
These ones are fun.
These
Nothing
ones are
too
fun.
serious.
Okay.
But you haven't
Lightening
had
the
fun so
mood.
far this whole time?
Well, everything's been fun, but these ones
It's always
are,
fun. Mr. Fun over here.
I know.
Mr. Fun.
Yes.
I almost pitched that name, though.
Favorite cheat meal or favorite, I guess, not unhealthy meal that you'd have?
I've gotten worse at my cheat meals over the years because it used to be, I want the chunky monkey milkshake and the cheese fries and all this stuff. I mean, that is kind of a thing of the past now. Now I just want like a big old fat massive ribeye. That's what
Okay.
I want right now.
You can do a lot
I mean,
worse.
it's actually not terrible as
No.
a cheat meal.
No.
But I want the fixins and I want all the sides, and I get kind of nasty with it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking at right now. If I'm gonna do it, I gotta really enjoy this.
Yeah, and you talked about ribeye. My man over here has hooked us up with Good Ranchers.
Ah,
Speaking
of
Good
ribeye.
Ranchers.
We had the ribeye the other night.
Ribye's
and
the best
you
one.
We're not kidding.
Like butter.
Holy smokes.
The
so
bacon
good.
is legit too.
We're going to have to try that next.
That
We didn't
thick
get
cut.
that one.
So
Fat
Good
back.
Ranchers, thank you so much.
Yes,
Man,
delicious.
We're going to be lifelong customers. for
He's
sure.
usually like a sirloin eater, so like no fat on it. I'm like, give me the
She's chewing
fattiest
on the
piece
fat.
of beef you can find.
Well, you got another box coming. Spoiler alert. So
Ooh, nice.
make sure you check
I'm
it
gonna
so it
be
doesn't
waiting
spoil
out
on the
my front
curb.
porch. Favorite book or movie?
Oh, okay. I was about to say, I hate to admit this, but I could not tell you the last time I actually read a book cover to cover.
Okay.
But as we were prepping these, he goes, favorite book or movie. I was like, we'll do book. I feel like Mojo reads.
Yeah, let
I
you
was
down
wrong.
on that one. My good friend Cal Penn put out a book. I read his book.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's that.
Okay.
But that's the only one.
Okay.
Okay. What about movie?
Movie, that's a cheat code. Remember the Titans. I went to the
Obviously.
high school. That is my number one. It always will be. I've been fortunate enough to be in a movie. Apologies to the G.I. Joe franchise, but Remember the Titans will never be beat to me. And I think it has a message that's awesome for the world.
Yeah,
So
it's one of my tops.
love that one.
Definitely. Obviously, you've traveled all around the world. Is there any place where you haven't been that's kind of a bucket list that you'd like to go?
There's so many because traveling, especially now since I've been married and even when I was engaged, like that is our big release now. Like before I wanted to go out partying and go to Vegas and Atlantic City and all these fun places and just turn up and dance. And now it's like, you know, now we like to travel.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been to Australia.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be awesome. I know WWE's there right now. With TMZ, we've been talking about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift there. So Australia, hot topic right now. But yeah, I've never been there. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's funny because the last interview we did with Tom Latimer and Camille, we didn't talk highly about Australia, but Mojo wants to go to Australia.
There's a lot of things that can kill you in Australia.
Well, maybe we should pivot. Maybe we should do some more research here.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm in. I'd
I would
go. I'd go. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah. Well, we'd have to find out. We have to go to find out.
Yeah, right. You're terrified of spiders. They have like man-eating spiders
I've
over
seen
there.
pictures. Yeah.
I don't know if you'd like
I would
Australia.
have to just take a flamethrower with me,
Yeah,
apparently.
yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, yuck. And then so your story, I mean, there's been lots of ups and downs, lots of perceived failures. Obviously we know that couldn't be farther from the truth, but you did have to start over a lot of times and you've had to pivot a lot. Looking back at, say, 20-year-old Mojo, what would be the biggest piece of advice that you would tell that man?
Honestly, I'm one of those people that would say absolutely nothing. I honestly believe everything happens for a reason, and your failures can propel you to something bigger down the line. I mean, if I'm being straight up, I would love to whisper some stock tips to 20-year-old Mojo as to what the future landscape's
Back
going
to
to
the
look
Future.
like. Then I can just literally do whatever I want, not have to worry about money ever. But
Yes.
I wouldn't want that either, because I look at these child celebrities that made millions and millions of dollars when they were like 8. Look how miserable they turn out to be when you've done everything in the world by age 15 and there's nothing left. I mean,
Yeah.
what a terrible life to live for that.
Yeah.
That's not what you want. So I think your failures are extremely important. I'm proud of when I fell on my face and all the times I was cut. I was cut by the Packers. I was injured in Arizona. My illness with COVID and, being fired from WWE because of that, and all of these things along the way, it always led to something better when I never possibly thought it could. Maybe I didn't get cut in Green Bay. Maybe I broke my neck on the field. Maybe I didn't get COVID and didn't, get fired from WWE. Well, maybe one of those tragic in-ring accidents you see, maybe that would have been my future, So it always leads to something better. So I never have an answer for that question aside from the stock tips, but no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I'm with you, man. It's just staying the course and finding a way to make it a better situation.
Yeah, it's about the journeys, what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, I heard a
Definitely.
quote the other day that said, "Every rejection is God's protection," and I feel like
I like that.
Absolutely.
your story is just beautiful, and I'm so glad that you're a part of this Hawk family and that we get to see you all the time. I'm glad you wandered in. I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
To the Hawk a few months
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah. I want you to ask this because you put that because it's really stood out to you.
Oh, yes. So the very first time you were here, I think you gave a little bit of a lecture in the ring to the students. And you said, somebody asked you, remember they were standing, or it might have been Danny. They're like, what piece of advice would you give someone standing out? And you said, I put it quotes, just find in you what nobody else can go out there and replicate. And it's so true, simple, but profound. And I said to Nick, I'm going to use that. I will always give Mojo credit. Was that Mojo for you? Was that Stay Hyped? Was the
Yeah.
hype thing? That was what nobody could go out and replicate?
For a big guy that could move and had the conditioning that I had, I knew that was a competitive advantage for me when I played football, because I had all the strength and conditioning records. And, when I was playing for the Cardinals, when I weighed 320 pounds, I was running with the linebackers and running backs for sprints.
Wow.
So I was like, good luck keeping up. Y'all might be more technically sound than me. You definitely know how to play the game and understand it better than I do. And that absolutely was the case in pro wrestling, because I was never a technical wrestler. Nobody ever expected me to be. That wasn't why the company employed me. But I knew, for me, you can't do what I do. I know how hard I trained and the conditioning that I put in every day and the lack of sleep I would have and keeping my attitude right. I was like, good luck finding somebody as big as me that can do what I do. That's not going to get winded, that has this, this intangible ability to just get people hyped up and put out that much energy. I was like, I know no one else can do that. I know they won't find anyone else that can do that. That has to be what I hang my hat on. And I got a job. I debuted extremely quickly. I think for having a non-wrestling background and being plugged in as a regular wrestler, I was the fastest to ever do that at NXT at the time, which, in some ways actually acted as a disservice to me because I didn't really know what I was doing just yet. And that smart crowd on the internet, they are ruthless. So I lost fans from the beginning, that I never really won back, but that's fine. There's a big audience out there, and not every character has to appeal to everybody. But yeah, it might take a while for people to find that. For me, I luckily had that right away because I had that self-awareness because I was cut so many times and I had to. But everyone has to find that one thing, and it might not be one thing. It might be the combination of 3 things, but that in itself is one thing. So whatever it might be, you have to find that and run with it. Don't be scared to utilize it.
I love that. Yeah, so I guess the only question I have left is, when are we going to get you in that cold plunge?
If I didn't have to leave right now, I would do it for the shot.
See, what had happened was...
No, I know. I hate to do that. This day is absolutely slammed, and I have the family in town, which makes things tougher.
Yeah, we'll get you out of here. But
what we're going to do is I'm going to come back,
okay,
and then I'm going to hop in, and we're going to stitch this together as if it happened immediately afterwards.
I like it.
That's what we do in wrestling.
We
it's
make movies.
Brother.
We make magic.
Exactly.
So if you guys picked up 2 things from this podcast, number 1, Jamie Stanley signed to Paragon. Number 2,
That's right.
Mojo's going to do the cold plunge.
That's it.
You don't even have to watch the rest.
Skip the rest, the first 30 seconds, the last 30 seconds, skip the middle.
That's it, baby. Awesome. Mojo, man, appreciate you so much, brother.
Thanks for having me on.
Personally, and I know from Renee and I, man, you've been such a blessing for the HOC, for us, for these guys. We can't wait to see, what you do in your continued journey in your career. We know that you just have nothing but great things and blessings coming your way, man. So we appreciate you being on the podcast, and we look forward to continuing our close friendship, man. We love you.
Yes,
Let's do it. I love you guys, too. Thanks for having me in. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for watching, all you champions. Once again, this is the podcast of champions. Keep tuning in. We just are so blessed that we're able to bring people like Mojo in to share their stories with you guys. And we're just looking forward to what we have coming down the pipe. And we hope that you guys have a blessed day. Be great. Be excellent. Show love. And go make it good.
Also, thank you to Kay for blowing me up before this. Also, blame him for the smell during this podcast.
I smell
Dried
nothing.
sweat is rough.
It's rough. But we got through it, baby.
Thanks,
Love
Kay.
y'all.